So last week we posted a video on this channel of us cruising for 20 minutes down the boardwalk in this 360 camp format. So this week I decided it might be cool to show you guys what my work commute on Freeskates looks like, or used to look like. So back initially when I started working for JMK, I did not have a car to drive to work, so I resorted to free skating about 15 blocks or a mile and a half or so every single day, one way, so there and back. And this is going to be that journey. So as you can see right here, we are heading up a hill. So this initial part initially does take a toll on you if you don't know how to tackle hills. One thing about using Freeskates for any sort of commute daily that I think is important is it's only going to get easier. So you might think, I'm watching out for cars here, that's also important. I'll talk about safety in a bit. But the more you use them for commute, you'll find that you're just going to become an overall stronger free skater, have more endurance, more stamina. It has been quite a while since I've made this specific commute, so we'll see how I can handle these hills. We're a few blocks in. Next, I think it's important to talk about safety. So you might have noticed that I am solely using the roads here. And that is because in San Diego, Pacific Beach specifically, most of these roads are actually pretty smooth. And that might depend on like where you're at. So some of the sidewalks here have unannounced bumps and cracks that historically have thrown me off my skates more so than the road has ever. So knowing your terrain is something that's really important. And we do talk about handling all sorts of terrains in our terrain video. Of course, when you're on something like Freeskates, it's important to follow all traffic laws as you would on a bike. So, watching for cars at stop signs and such. I do think it's important to talk about some potential downsides of, free skating a commute like this, day to day, day in, day out. One of them would be the wear and tear of your skates. So the more you ride your skates, obviously the faster your wheels are going to wear down. And as far as wear and tear, that's probably the main thing is wheels. As long as you're avoiding any sort of water, wet terrain, your bearings should be fine. So on that note though, if you're taking smooth pavement, your wheels are gonna grind down less and less. And on the contrary, if you're taking rough pavement or you're just deciding to carve really hard to stop, you're gonna wear them down faster. So be mindful of how much you're really digging into those skates. Morning. So this is the part where the uphill actually stops and it becomes downhill, which is fun, but it comes back to bite you or me later on the way back from work at night. Today's only going to be about day riding, so not exactly covering the night commute. But when you do travel home at night, potentially at the end of the workday, a lot more stuff is going to be blind, it being dark at night, so keep that in mind. Know your route. I would recommend taking the same route every time if you can to avoid any potential unknowns. Also add, it's just, I think, a generally peaceful way to start the workday. I very much enjoy cruising on Freeskates, and having this at the beginning of my commute as opposed to just driving in traffic was, I'd say, much preferred. I'd also say in times such as now when gas prices are so high, it is extremely preferred, I'm sure, for many of you, if you live a close enough distance to work. or college or wherever you're trying to go.
So earlier I mentioned there are going to be some downsides to taking a commute like this on Freeskates, and another obvious one is going to be time. So if the alternative is using a car to get to work, then obviously it's going to take you a little more time to make this commute. And then I would say the other downside is soreness. So this is something you should be aware of when you're about to get yourself into this. You're probably going to be sore if you're not used to going these long distances, but the commute can only get easier in the future as you continue to build those muscles.
So now we're just going to wait a while at this stoplight. I see right here there's these yellow bumps, crosswalks. Those can catch you off guard the first time you hit them. So I would recommend leaning back and being prepared for a fall when you hit them for the first time, because those can really screw you up. Wait for this green light.
After almost a minute of waiting here, I realized this light just wasn't going to change.
Now that I've been waiting here for a while, I may have to hit this button. And we are off again. I'll switch it up right now, take the sidewalk, avoid this little yellow bump there. So already there are seams in between the sidewalks that are potentially screwing me up. Luckily these are not too big, but some of these bumps in PB, they're impossible to roll over, or just if there's a car in your way, like over there. It'll be interesting to time this commute, as I don't know if I've ever really timed this before. But it is 1.5 miles, pretty much on the dot. This is less about cruising, but more about myself and my riding style. I would use this opportunity in the mornings to work on my tricks, believe it or not. So if I had a little extra time, maybe left for JMK pretty early. I don't know if I mentioned that. I do work with jmkride, full disclosure. But I would use this time to work on some tricks. And because I, commute to work every day, that allowed for some pretty good repetition with my practice. On a side note, this photo is really smooth, so I'm actually going to take this one. But I guess the obvious trick, if you know me, that I spent all that time, those 6 months I made this 1.5 mile commute, that trick is the kickflip. And just getting used to trying that at different speeds. Now, this doesn't have to be the kickflip for you. It can be like a 180. That's something that would be great to practice during your commute. But I can try and throw one in right now. So there we go. Over time, I obviously got pretty used to this and better at it, but it did not look like that at the start. Like so many other free skaters, I was having such a hard time getting it consistent, and this is kind of what helped me get there. What's really fun and slightly dangerous, so definitely know your limits, is trying it at higher speeds. So I would say this is a good 8 or so miles an hour. Nothing too crazy, but when you have something flipping under you, let's see. That one felt good. So I'd recommend it. Use this time in your daily cruises or commutes to work on those little things. Make baby steps. Sometimes you gotta watch out for cars. That person tried to run me over.
Alright, so what exactly happened there? So usually when I'm free skating around and there are stop signs and cars, I consider myself to have pretty good spatial awareness and when I should be stopping to wait for a car because, they have the right of way. Knowing that there were no other cars present here, at least initially, I thought I would free skate right on through. But if you look back at the clip, this person simply did not stop, just blew straight through that stop sign and could have hit me. So regardless of how safe you choose to be while you're out free skating, please don't forget that you can't really control what other people are going to do.
I was pretty focused on talking to you guys and was not paying attention to who had the right of way. So use that as a lesson to definitely make sure you're following the law and paying attention to your surroundings so that you don't get any cars potentially trying to run you over. All right, so this block I know is notorious for some cracks, like this one. And I've definitely hit my share of cracks in my days of commuting this path, so let's try to avoid those today. We've talked about this in some other videos, but some general tips for staying safe while you're making these commutes is while you're going over these unknowns and bumps, make sure you're bending your knees considerably and keep your weight shifted back to your back skate so that your front skate can roll over things. And if you lose your back skate, it's not the end of the world. But if you lose your front skate, you're kind of face planting. We're actually getting pretty close here, which is exciting. Whew. So this part is actually considerably bumpy, so I'm going to take this slow, bend my knees. As we near the end of this commute, we're not quite there yet, but I do want to say would I recommend this to anyone? If your work is close, I'd say within a few miles, I would say go for it. Work out a route that works for you. It is definitely nice to save on gas and get some exercise in every single day, whether you're intentional about that or not. The exercise was never really my goal, but more a byproduct of doing this every single day. Staying fit. Coming up on Cass Street, the same street that JMK is located on. Getting close. You may recognize this path, this bike lane, from our cruising video for 20 minutes. If you have bike lanes in your area, that's almost the perfect thing if you're used to going nice and fast. Taking the bike lanes gets you clear of all the cars, and it makes things a lot safer for you. Just make sure that if you do go fast, you know what you're doing and you've already practiced some downhill carving and you really have control on slowing down and checking your speed, avoiding going too fast, because that's when, disaster can happen if you don't know what you're doing. So overall, would I recommend this? Of course I would. If it makes sense for your distance, your length of commute, and save on gas. Fun way to get to work. I did, yeah. No, not like all the way here. I did my old commute.
Oh, okay.
After about 2 years of not taking that commute, it was nice to do it one more time. Hope you guys enjoyed the ride. And if you haven't seen that 20-minute cruise video that we posted last week, highly recommend checking that out. It's just 20 minutes of vibing on the boardwalk with Jeff. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and roll with us.